Hey everyone, Mah-Dry-Bread here. Pokemon Black with only HM moves was a faster run than I expected. Let's follow up with my first challenge video in Fallout 4. Today's the day that we figure out would I be able to beat Fallout 4 with only pipe weapons. So before I get into the run itself, this is my first challenge run in Fallout 4, so I should get some preliminary stuff out of the way. I don't think this is going to be a super hard challenge or anything, this is mostly for fun. With it being my first challenge video on the game, I'm going to be going over the plot of the game and the order of events in a lot more detail than I normally would, so that those of you who are new to Fallout 4 can learn what the game is all about. That way you would have an easier time watching Fallout 4 challenges in the future. As for my experience with the game, you guys probably already know that I know the game pretty well. I used to work for ShoddyCast back when that was a thing, then I used to work for Fudge Muppet, and I did a Let's Play of Fallout 4 when it was new. It was in survival mode, but survival mode at launch was more like very hard mode is now. I did actually end up beating the entire proper survival mode once that came out without using power armor. I was gonna make it into a big guide video for ShoddyCast, but that channel kinda died. You know what? I still have the footage on my old hard drive somewhere. Let me see if I can dig out proof. There you go. Here's me at the end of the game, looking at the difficulty screen to show you that I still set the game on survival. I'd show you an achievement or something, but there's no achievement for beating the game on survival because, I don't know, Bethesda hates us, I guess. Maybe I'll still make that full guide video one day. Let me know in the comments if you're interested in that. Anyway, time to talk about this run. So, pipe weapons are these guns made out of scrap parts that you tend to get near the start of the game. They're overall really weak, but they're highly customizable to show off the game's custom weapon modding system thing. You can make them into pretty decent weapons with enough investment, but they're never really gonna be amazing. Still, they should be more than enough to beat the game if you know what you're doing, so I think this is gonna be a fun warm-up challenge. Great for those of you watching who want to get into playing challenges like this yourself. Like always, I'm writing the script as I go through with the challenge, so this part is being written before I've started. Everyone comment down below and guess if I can win or not. I think there might be a few hard parts, and that it's going to be difficult to take down some of the tankier enemies in the game, but overall, I don't think it should be too hard. Let's explain the rules. In combat, we can only use pipe weapons. Honestly, that's about it. Seems pretty simple. Lastly, only cosmetic mods are allowed. I'm not allowed to use any mods that affect gameplay. Basically, the only mods I'll install are ones that, like, fix the game. You know exactly what I mean if you've played this game on PC before. There's all kinds of mods that just make the game run better without changing any gameplay mechanics. Also, if you like this video, be sure to like, subscribe, and ring the bell for more. Let's do this. So, the game starts with us in our suburban home hanging out with our wife, our robo-butler, and our infant son, Sean. After customizing what we look like, we get to do a survey with a representative of Vault-Tec, and this is where we customize our starting stats. I'm not gonna get into all the lore here since we'd be here forever, but Vault-Tec makes the vaults. Duh. Anyway, the game still has the special system. It's an acronym for our stats that I'm sure you know about if you've already watched my runs in Fallout 3 and New Vegas. It works pretty differently in this game though. Instead of having your special points and skill points, you just have special points. The difference is that each point unlocks a new perk that you can then put points into each time you level up to gain new abilities. What you're looking at right now is an online skill calculator, and it's showing what I ended up going with. Every time we level up, we either get to put a point into our special attributes, or put a point into a perk to either gain it or make it stronger. So like if we wanted to get the 5th perk down in strength category, then we need to have 5 points in strength before we can grab that perk. Makes sense, right? The special attributes give their own little bonuses too, like health from endurance and action points from agility, so there's value in the points beyond just the perks you get with them. You'll see I went super high on strength mostly because I might get some use out of the steady aim perk for more accurate hip fire, and the carry capacity isn't bad either. For perception, I went super low because I only need 2 points for riflemen, plus there's a permanent bonus to perception that I can get really early in the challenge easily. Perception just makes us more accurate in VATS, and I doubt I'm going to use that very much. 3 in endurance so I could get Life Giver for more max health, 4 in charisma so I could get Lone Wanderer and Attack Dog because they work pretty well together, and I'm likely using Dogmeat as my companion. I actually did a whole video ranking the companions of this game, by the way, link on screen and in the description. I got my agility up to 5 for Action Boy, mostly because I want action points to recover quickly so that I can sprint more, and the rest I just dumped into intelligence for extra experience points. Oh, and a couple points into luck just because Scrounger might be nice for extra ammo. Not sure if I'm gonna bother with it though. Anyway, shortly after that, the bombs drop. Everyone goes sprinting to the local vault, and we just hardly make it in time. Yeah, I know, if the bombs were really that close, then we'd already be full of a lethal dose of radiation, but I mean, it's a video game where we're shooting at super mutants in the post-apocalypse. I give it some leeway when it comes to the science. It's science fiction, emphasis on fiction. I have much more valid things to complain about later anyway. Once we get into the vault, they take our names and escort us to the back room where they have us all get into pods. They tell us that they're decontamination pods, but we quickly realize that these are to cryogenically freeze us. Naturally, we don't realize that till it's too late. Yeah, if you've played the other games, then you know that Vault Tech had a habit of running experiments on their inhabitants, so that's the gimmick of this vault, freezing us. An indeterminate amount of time passes, and we're awoken when a mercenary-looking dude comes in with some lab tech and starts thawing people out while looking for someone. From our pod, we watch as our wife has our son Sean ripped from her hands as they shoot her dead. We get a good look at the guy who did it before he freezes us again. Well, at least we know who we want revenge on. Another indeterminate amount of time later, and we thaw again. Looks like we're the only survivor. Or at least the only one out here right now. Now, we could loot the place, but there's red roaches here, and we can't really fight since we don't have a pipe weapon yet, so I just run through as fast as I can to leave. Problem is, they won't let us pick up the Pip-Boy that we need to leave while we're in combat. And even though I completely evaded the roaches and was hiding from them for ages, it never set us to hidden. I think 3 of the roaches are set to always know where we are, so eventually I punched them dead. Now, you could say that I've already broken the rules because my hands aren't pipe weapons, but our guy is called Pipe Man, so I'm gonna say my hands are made of pipe for the sake of starting the challenge. And if you think that that's cheating, then feel free to complain in the comments section. Comments are good for the YouTube algorithm. Hey look, we're on the surface now. The first thing we're gonna do is go to Sanctuary, the name of the neighborhood that we're from. Our old butler robot Codsworth is actually still here, just waiting for us to return. We can follow him around and let him clear out critters from a few houses that are still here, but eventually he just tells us to go to Concord, the nearest city. He doesn't seem to really understand what's going on. He kind of gets that the world is over, but is still convinced that Sean and our wife must be around here somewhere. Also, this is a perfect example of why Codsworth is pretty hard to use as a companion. He gets stuck on walls all the time. I had to shove him around just to get him unstuck enough to fight. With some of the DLC, you can upgrade him later, but I don't think we'll be doing that in this run. Before leaving the Sanctuary, I made sure to grab the special book from near Sean's crib, since that gives us a stat point of our choice. Super easy to miss this. I took Endurance because you can never have enough health and AP for sprinting. On our way out of town is a drifter's body with a pipe pistol on it. Great. I went straight to the weapons bench in Sanctuary, but no luck. We have the stuff for quite a few upgrades, but we're missing adhesive, and we need that for basically any mod. Next, I went straight to the gas station outside of the neighborhood so that I could get dog meat. He's the first companion that we can get, and easily one of the best ones. It's not necessarily that he's amazing, but he can get items for you, distract enemies pretty well, and most importantly, he doesn't count as a companion for the sake of the Lone Wanderer perk. It's a pretty powerful perk that makes it so that we take less damage and are able to carry more weight if we have no companion. For whatever reason, Dogmeat doesn't count as a companion for that perk, so he's often one of the best choices. So as soon as we get to Concord, I start looting and fighting raiders. Early on, we find this pipe bolt-action rifle, and although it's far stronger than our pistol, it also uses ammo that we only have a couple of bullets for, so I'll have to hold on to this for now. After fighting a few raiders, we end up leveling up, so for our first perk, I take Gun Nut. This unlocks some more mod choices for our weapons, and I want to get this pipe pistol as upgraded as I can early. Its ammo is easy to find, so it's probably what I'm going to be using for quite a bit of this run. Anyway, the raiders are attacking some guy dressed like a Minuteman who's holding out in this War of Independence museum. We go in there, fight our way through, and end up getting a ton of pipe pistol ammo, since it's a really common thing for raiders to drop this early in the game. As soon as we reach the Minutemen, we just blitz past them and grab the perception bobblehead from the desk. This permanently gives us an extra point of perception. Then I talked to Preston Garvey a little bit, the leader of the Minutemen. You know, this guy, he's from all the memes when this game was new. He's dressed like a Minuteman because he's literally from a group called the Minutemen, and they're basically just here to protect people from raiders and whatnot. They let us know that there's power armor on the roof and that we can get the power core from the basement. Now, I'm not exactly a fan of how early you get power armor in this game, considering how important it was in the previous games, but I will say that I really enjoy the power armor mechanics in this game. It's cool that you're able to customize it, and the fact that it requires power cores to keep going, so it's more than just a suit of armor. That said, I'm not really going to use it this run. I want to try the challenge without it. We do need to pick it up for this quest though, so I will. I'll just bring it back to Sanctuary. So we get the power armor and use it to pick up the minigun, and then I just ditch the minigun. We'll just sell this later or something. See, a Deathclaw spawns here so that you can have some big cool action hero moment fighting it with your new minigun, and I'm not going to bother with it since we can't use the minigun, and there's no way we'd have enough ammo to actually kill this thing with a pipe pistol. Call me a stick in the mud, but I used to beat Fallout 1 and 2 on a yearly basis because I love those games so much. Something about you having to get power armor, a minigun, and then having to take down a Deathclaw right at the start of the game kind of cheapens it for me. Felt like something you really had to earn in the old games, especially killing a Deathclaw. I remember that being almost impossible in the first game. To each their own though, I'm not going to tell you how to enjoy your favorite video game. I'm just an old, ancient 30-year-old who remembers Fallout 1. If you liked this part of the game, then I get it. It was probably fun. I'm getting out of here though, because I need to save ammo for the next part of the run. Right away, I go to a nearby diner that's being raided by, well, raiders. I shot them dead, and the owner of the diner pays us 100 caps as a reward, and then we can trade with her. She's actually just a shopkeep, so I take this chance to buy any junk that she's selling that has adhesive, rubber, and aluminium. These are all things that I need for a lot of gun mods, and they're always super easy to find, so I got them while I could. Because of that, I was able to go back to the weapons workbench and upgrade our gun. Right away, I got a powerful receiver to add a lot of damage, and a large quick eject mag that holds 24 bullets instead of 12, while still having pretty fast reload speeds. Okay, so what I'm doing right now is walking to Diamond City, a city built on an old baseball stadium. Much like in the older Fallout games, you can skip a pretty large chunk of the main story right at the start if you know where you're going. In every game, you're either looking for someone or something, so if you know where that person or thing is, you can go straight there. We can't exactly go straight to Sean even if we know where he is, but we can at least skip ahead to the location where we meet the first guy who can actually help us look for him. We never needed to go to Concord, that was just to meet Preston Garvey, and after you fight the Deathclaw, you just bring him and his crew back to Sanctuary, and they tell you to go to Diamond City. So really, we're skipping one conversation. In fact, we've probably skipped 10 minutes of the game. Woo, what a big skip. I think this is actually the smallest main story skip in any Fallout game, if I'm remembering right. Hold on. Do we count Fallout Tactics as a main Fallout game? I don't know if there's any skips in that one. I don't know. I don't remember Tactics very well, and I don't think you do either. Cool concept for a game. Could never get super into it. Maybe one day I'll go back to it and love it. Who knows? It's still better than that terrible PlayStation 2 game. Oh my god. What was that one called? Brotherhood of Steel? I think that one was called Brotherhood of Steel. The top-down shooter one, that one was bad. I'm rambling, let's get back to the run. Anyway, I ended up finding the city of Lexington. It's pretty uneventful at first, other than some ghoul fights, until I noticed an explosion. I look in the distance, and sure enough, there's a raider in some power armor with a fat man. That's a rocket launcher that shoots mini nukes. I decided I'd try and sneak up on him, but I got chased by ghouls. So once I got to him, I just ran past him into a nearby apartment as he started wildly firing nukes in my direction. I can't believe we didn't get hurt by that. I guess this little apartment can protect us from nukes. The ghouls that were chasing me then got in a fight with the raider, so he just kept firing nukes at his own feet, so his armor was wrecked. Then I unloaded as many shots as it took to finish off all the enemies in the area and looted every last thing worth some money that they left behind. Honestly, I'm gonna need a lot of this money just to buy more ammo. I've been using a lot more than I expected to use, and I'm not gonna be fighting dudes who drop crap pipe pistol ammo the whole game, you know? I ended up taking a little bit of a break for a while to help build Sanctuary. Partly because I find it kind of fun, and partly because I want to be able to make vegetable stock. It gives you quite a bit of adhesive, and it's not that hard to make. You just need a few different veggies and purified water. So making renewable sources at home is the best way to do that. That said, we have no people living here since we never completed the Minutemen quest earlier, so I had to go ahead and make a recruitment beacon instead. Also, I don't know why I bought rubber earlier when there are rubber tires I can scrap all over the place. Totally slipped my mind. Anyway, back to looting Lexington. Seems like there's a lot of low-level raiders here, so it's a good enough place to get tons of ammo for my pipe weapons while getting some early game experience. We don't actually need to be here in Lexington or anything. I just thought it would be fun to take my time with this run, since I haven't played Fallout 4 in a couple of years. I'm mostly just looting ammo, medical supplies, and whatever might sell for a decent amount of money. Oh, and of course, any junk that has crafting value. At this point, I've got a level of gun nut as well as some damage resistance from toughness. I think I'll take rifleman soon for the extra damage and armor piercing from rifles, but not until I get more adhesive. I'm planning on turning our pipe pistol into a pipe rifle so that it can benefit from the perk. It'll still have the same type of ammo, so I can have 2 different pipe weapons from 2 different ammo types. Actually, we also have a pipe revolver, but that's 45 caliber rounds, which are pretty rare this early in the game, and expensive, so I'm gonna have to save that for later in the run. I think as soon as I run into dudes with Tommy guns, they drop a lot of 45 caliber. Plus, I want to upgrade that revolver before I go using it. No point in wasting the good ammo on a bad gun. Now, there's quite a bit of walking here, and not always something interesting to show. I'm not really complaining about that. I like the moody, atmospheric parts of the game where you're just exploring. Plus, this gives me a great opportunity to talk about this episode's sponsor, Chimera. I don't know about where you are, but over here in Ontario, Canada, it's properly winter now. Snow and freezing rain and everything. I mean, it's Christmas Eve when this is coming out, so I'd hope there's snow. Because of that, it makes sense that I'd show off some of Chimera's winter gear. Right away, this lightweight puffer jacket is literally the best winter coat I've ever had. It looks thin and feels super light, but it's also super warm. If I have to go out and shovel snow in the morning, I just wear this over a long sleeve shirt and it keeps me super warm the whole time. I'm saying super too much. And if you don't have a long sleeve shirt, then that's fine, because Chimera sells those too. Check it out. They also sell fleece joggers that I find really warm when you're out there shoveling. I just assume that everybody's shoveling snow, right? That can't just be a Canada thing, right? Your municipal government makes you shovel your own snow too? Man, I hope that's not local to just here. Actually, no, I do hope that's just local to here, because shoveling snow sucks. Chimera's got your upper body and your lower body covered this winter. If you're gonna go pick something up, then make sure to use the promo code Mah-Dry-Bread at checkout to get 10% off your order and to let them know that I sent you. Alright, let's get back to the run. After walking through the ruins in the south, we finally pass a bridge and get into the proper city ruins. Just after crossing the bridge, I take a little detour through Hangman Alley. Hey, pro tip for those of you who are playing on survival difficulty. This place makes a great home base. See, in survival mode, you can't fast travel, and considering Sanctuary is all the way at the top left of the map, you'll probably want your base to be somewhere closer to the center. Well, not only is Hangman's Alley in a great spot to travel from, but later in the game, you will get to fast travel to one location, and it's really close to here. There are spoiler implications, so I won't explain exactly how that works until later in this video, but those of you who have already beaten the game probably have an idea of what I'm talking about. Anyway, make sure that you use the workbench here to claim the place. Totally worth it. Once getting farther into the city, I ran into an issue. Super mutants are strong. Shocker, I know. Even with our extra damage, we really aren't doing much to the super mutants. I quickly ended up having to run away once more than one showed up at a time. I'm sure this won't be an issue in the future once we're using pipe weapons that use better ammo, but right now we're rolling with a pipe pistol with no perks to power it up, so I had to run. A settler ended up luring me into a hardware store that was pretty obviously a raider ambush, but I ended up getting the drop on them and took them out. They had lots of ammo, chems, and even some good junk around here, so I'm not complaining. I even found some wonder glue. I think that's like 4 adhesive. Maybe I can upgrade my weapons some more. Okay, after a little modding, we've improved our guns again. Now we've got a marksman stock on it, so it's officially a rifle, and I've also slapped a glow sight on it. I figure this is our go-to utility gun, so I don't want to go putting a scope on it. This is probably going to be mostly close-ish range. I'd have removed the short barrel and gave it something better, but we're short on copper and the store isn't selling anymore at the moment. I made sure to pick up the first level of rifleman, so we're doing a bit more damage now. I'm pumped to try this thing out. So we're basically right at Diamond City at this point, so I just walk right over. Outside the gate is someone called Piper, who's clearly a resident who's been locked out because of her news articles she's been printing about the mayor. She's convincing the gate guy to open the gate by saying that we're a merchant so we can get in. The mayor is waiting at the gate to complain about her, but we just move on past. We've got a quest to do. So in town, there's this Valentine's detective agency, but once we show up, we find that the detective is missing. We botch a charisma check to his assistant, Ellie, and as far as I can tell, that did literally nothing because the conversation just continues as normal, and she lets us know that the last time she saw him, he was leaving to deal with a mobster named Skinny Malone who kidnapped someone. Their hideout is in the Park Street station, so that's our next goal. We're finally on the main quest again. Okay, so here's something I want to show. Right in the streets of Diamond City, a dude pulls a gun on his own brother thinking that he's a synth and ends up being killed by town security. So the synths are a massive plot point in this game, and a ton of the game revolves around them. Synths are basically cyborgs, or androids? I guess androids. I think that cyborgs imply that there's organic matter involved. Maybe? Look, I don't remember my distinctions that well on cyborgs and androids, to be honest. Some older models look kind of like the skeleton of the Terminator, but most of the up-to-date synths are indistinguishable from humans. There's a group called the Institute who makes them, and everyone is terrified of them, because they'll send them out to do tasks, including assassinations. The Institute are kind of like a boogeyman, though. Nobody really knows if they exist or not, but everyone's pretty convinced that they exist. Not only did they send them out for assassinations, but they can look exactly like real people, so everyone's pretty much worried about body snatchers, the idea that someone you know has been replaced by a synth. In fact, that's what the mayor is so mad about. That Piper's been writing in the newspaper that he's a synth. If he is or isn't, I'll leave that up to you to find out. I mean, or you could go check on the Fallout wiki. Let's go find that detective. So here we are in the subway. You may notice the frame rate of the footage suddenly looks much nicer when indoors. Yeah, I was wondering why it was sometimes really choppy despite my computer basically being a supercomputer compared to the requirements for this game, so I googled it. Turns out the game has a really bad built-in VSync, so I had to turn that off in my NVIDIA control panel and then limit the frame rate to 60, otherwise the game's physics would just break. Now it's nice and smooth. Most of the time. Not always. Man, I remember when this game released with that built-in mouse acceleration that you had to turn off in the INI files. That was a mess. I wonder if it's still like that. Oh god, I'm rambling about game settings. No one cares. I should talk about the game. Look, all you need to know is I turned off the in-game VSync through some .ini folder. I limited the frame rate in the NVIDIA control panel to 60, and I downloaded a mod that unlocks the frame rate when you're in loading screens. It makes the loading screens for fast travel and getting in and out of buildings way faster. I don't know why the game doesn't work like that by default, honestly. So there's a lot of mobsters down here with Tommy guns and 10mm pistols. The great thing is that our rifle is awesome here, seeing as they're far away, and our gun is a lot more effective at range than theirs. The issue is, none of them use the same bullets as our rifle, so we start running out quickly. It's a good thing that we have a pipe revolver though, since their Tommy guns use .45 caliber rounds. That leaves us with loads of ammo for a pretty strong gun for this early in the game, although the pipe revolver shoots slowly, takes a while to reload, and only holds 6 bullets at a time. That, and because of its short barrel and being a pistol right now, its damage drops off very quickly at range. The thing is, it's totally unupgraded. This is actually the first time I've had to pull it out. It gets us pretty far underground though, and we end up finding a vault door. We've got a Pip-Boy, so we're able to open it and get into Skinny's hideout. Let's find that detective. Once we get there, we have some more fights with mobsters in wide open areas that are kind of hard, but not too brutal as long as we take it slow. But man, our revolver really sucks at long range. It kind of sucks at short range too, thanks to the slow fire speed. At least it hits hard. Once we get to the commons area of the vault, we have a shootout with Dino, this guy with the password to the detective. We take him out, the detective tells us to open the door, we do, and what a twist! He's a classic style synth. This is Nick Valentine. He's a pretty cool dude. He's one of the companions that I think a lot of people fondly remember from this game. I've got to rewind a minute though. Yeah, I get that Bethesda wanted him being a synth to be a cool twist, but do you remember what Ellie said back at his detective agency? Nick should be easy to spot. He's always wearing that old hat and trench coat getup. You didn't think to bring up that he's like the only old style synth in Boston who doesn't just shoot on sight? It's not like he's a ghoul where tons of people are ghouls and that could just slip your mind to bring up. The dude's a unicorn and she didn't think to bring that up. It's like if you got mugged and you brought up to the police officer the color of his shoes, but not the fact that he's covered head to toe in Dragon Ball tattoos. Kinda feel like that would help in finding the guy. Anyway, he says let's get out of here, he slams into a wall, gets confused, talks for a while, and then teleports. Oh, Bethesda. Never change. So we fight our way down some corridors against more goons. It's not that hard since we have both Dogmeat and Valentine helping us. He doesn't technically count as a companion right now, so that's why we can get away with having both of them as backup. Valentine actually said that the lady wasn't kidnapped by Skinny, she just ran away with him, so naturally we run into them both. They talk for a little while about how these aren't like the old times. I guess they know each other. You know, Valentine kept implying that Skinny is an ironic nickname, but he really doesn't look fat to me. In fact, I don't think anyone in this game is fat. Like, there's a couple people who are slightly heavier than your average person, but not fat. I guess you could say it's because it's post-apocalypse and food is scarce, but I think they literally just never made a model for particularly fat characters. Anyway, I say let us go peacefully, and despite our terrible charisma, they just let us. They even acknowledged that I shot up his guys. Yeah, dude, I killed like 50 of your guys. I can see that you have 2 left. I don't think your gang exists anymore, and you're just gonna let me go? Alright, well, we leave. Time to go back to Diamond City and see if we can figure out how to find Sean. Before I do, though, back to the weapons bench. I finally gave our rifle a long barrel rather than a short one, and I did a few upgrades to the revolver while I was at it, like more damage and better recoil handling. I want to put a proper stock on this and turn it into a revolver rifle, but I'm gonna need more copper first. I have like 13 submachine guns to sell, so I'm sure I can buy some. Back to Valentine's office, we sit down and let them know everything we know. Somehow our character still thinks Sean is 1, even though we understand that we were frozen for 200 years, and that the thawing happened partway through because we were refrozen. We describe what the guy looked like, and they both think that it's some guy called Kellogg, who has a house in town and had a 10-year-old kid with him. We say that could be Sean, but he says that it's probably not since we said that Sean was an infant. I mean, at least that part makes sense. We never told Valentine that we were refrozen after the murder. Actually, we kind of left out a lot of important details, but I'm guessing they just didn't want this conversation to go on forever. We end up leaving to go find that guy's house. So the house is locked, go figure. Valentine sends us to the mayor to try and talk him into giving us the key for the place. We failed the charisma check, so he just told us that the citizens' privacy is too important, even if the place is abandoned. I was, however, able to convince the secretary to let me in. So I grabbed the biggest house key in the universe and head right over. I loot the place of all the good stuff, find the secret button to the side room, and find that he has a box of cigars. The plan is to have Dogmeat follow the scent to try and figure out where he is. We could have Valentine follow us, but I decided against it so I could use the Lone Wanderer perk instead and just go with Dogmeat. First though, I real quickly stopped off at our base now that we have more copper to put a rifle stock on my revolver. I'd put on a better one, but we need a higher level of gun nut for that. This does increase the damage though, thanks to our rifleman perk. So it's time for the hunt for Kellogg. It's honestly not terribly eventful. It's mostly us running across the wasteland with Dogmeat, finding Kellogg's collection of hardly smoked cigars that he just left all over the place. You'd think that in the post-apocalypse you wouldn't be wasteful with cigars, but what do I know? Along the way, we have a pretty tough fight with a bear that takes tons of shots to take down, and ended up in a fight with some super mutants that do some serious damage. Our pipe revolver is a lot stronger than the pipe rifle we were using when we first ran into super mutants, though. so I was actually able to take all 3 of them down. At the end, we reached the fort where he's staying. It's covered in turrets, but it's pretty easy to snipe them from just out of their sight, since they're so big and bulky and you only need to be able to hit a corner of them. Alright, now this base is a bit of a boss area. It's the end of Act 1, essentially, so let's get prepared before we go in. First, I drop some serious money back in Diamond City and get some really sweet chest armor. This is basically a super well upgraded leather chest piece, and although that's generally a weak armor, it's really great at reducing energy damage taken, and synths like using energy weapons. I also upgraded our bolt-action rifle with a powerful receiver to make it the strongest gun per shot, and gave it a reflex sight. It's not my favorite sight, but I thought I'd give it a try. I'd upgrade the barrel too, but I need more adhesive. You know what's coming up, don't you? Yep. Kellogg's hideout is full of synths. Now this place is actually pretty tough if you don't have a good short-ranged weapon, because you're often stuck in close quarters with them. They don't hit super hard, but they take quite a few shots to take down, and they tend to knock out dog meat really quickly. See, unlike us who can just wear tons of leather armor to protect ourselves from energy weapons, dog meat can't. You can't actually armor your dog. Most other companions can wear whatever you can wear, so you can just equip them with armor to increase their damage resistance and energy resistance. You can't do that for dog meat, though. Alright. Now I just wait a minute. A little bit longer. There we go. Now, I bet some of you have already paused the video to leave a comment saying that dog meat can wear armor. It's called dog armor. Problem is, here's the wiki entry for it. As you can see, dog armor does not give any damage resistance. That's what I'm saying. The other companions can be given armor that gives them damage resistance, but not dog meat. Now, the reason why I knew some of you would say that is hilarious. Let me show you. You remember that companions video I talked about? Yeah, I made that 4 years ago, and yet I still routinely get comments on it. Comments that almost always just say that dog meat can wear armor, in response to me saying his lack of ability to wear armor for damage resistance is a problem. So I want you to do me a favor. There's a link on screen right now to that video. I don't care if you're watching this the day it came out or 10 years after it came out. Go to the video I have linked on screen, sort the comments by newest comment, and check it out. I bet you within 2 weeks of you checking, someone is saying that there is dog armor. I'm confident it'll be there, because I've been getting these comments non-stop for 4 long years. The best part is that the pinned comment explains the dog armor thing, and even links to the wiki to prove my point, but they scroll past the pinned comment to tell me about the dog armor item. It's gotten to the point where if I type the word read on my phone, the autocomplete is the pinned comment. It's basically an infinite source of comedy to me at this point. It never gets old. One day, hopefully a long time from now, I'm gonna be on my deathbed, and I'll be able to go on that video and see brand new people saying that there's dog armor. Do me a favor, if you went and checked to see if there was any new dog meat armor comments, then leave a comment on this video saying today's date, and if you saw a comment about it, as one of the, let's say, 10 newest comments on the other video. That way, each of your comments on this video will be a time capsule on if people were still saying the dog armor thing or not on that video. If they ever stop saying it, then we'll be able to pinpoint the moment that it died off. Alright, I'm having way too much fun with this rant, let's get back to the game. As we get deeper into Kellogg's base, he taunts us over the intercom. He clearly remembers us. We have to get through a solid 50 or so synths to get to the bottom of this place, and they don't drop any ammo that we can use, but we have so much ammo for our revolver back from Skinny Malone's crew that it's not a problem. We actually ended up hitting level 9 while we were down here, so we could take level 2 of Rifleman. That powered up our weapons quite a bit. There's also a boatload of loot down here, so we're probably going to make some pretty good money once I can hit up a shop to sell all of this. I was thinking this area might be a problem, but our high energy resistance from our leather armor is doing wonders for keeping us safe. I'm pretty sure that Kellogg himself uses a regular gun though, so he might hit pretty hard. We're nearing his room. Let's hope for the best. We walk in and talk with him for a little bit. We don't really learn much from him other than that Sean is older than we remember, and that Sean is happy with the Institute. We tried to ask him how we find him, but he just said that we don't find the Institute finds us, then the fight starts. The first try went awful. He's got two synth bodyguards, and Kellogg himself uses a stealth boy, so he's invisible. Dogmeat can sometimes pin him down, but he's super hard to see. We ended up dying pretty fast. On the second try, I instead tried to shoot him before he started talking, and then quickly ran off to the side to take out his synths first. Then Dogmeat caught Kellogg and pinned him down in a tight space, so we just sandwiched him in there and kept shooting him. He actually went down really fast since his pathfinding isn't really good enough for him to figure out how to get past us once we locked him in. We got the password off his body, as well as picking up some cybernetic implants he had. Seems like he's been heavily modified. We used the password on his computer, and yeah, it confirms what we thought. He's a mercenary that was hired by the Institute. He doesn't work in the Institute directly. He just gets hired out by them to do jobs, like getting Sean. As we leave the base, I look up and, oh look! The Brotherhood of Steel are here. Yeah, seems like the Brotherhood out in Boston have far more resources and manpower than the Brotherhood do on the West Coast. On the West Coast, they're just a small group of dudes in bunkers, but out here they've got a Zeppelin and multiple vertibirds, basically attack helicopters. Let's visit Nick Valentine and ask about this. So, we talked to Nick and Piper for a little while about our findings. Nick says that we could use the implant we found in Kellogg's head at the memory den in Good Neighbor to relive his memories and get info on how he got into the Institute. I mean, it's a better plan than I have. So I go walking to Good Neighbor, get lost a bunch, because I always do. Fight some ghouls, run past a bunch of raiders, and I'm there. Some dude shakes me down, the mayor shanks him, you know, normal stuff. Okay, we're at the memory den. You know, I never really use sarcastic responses in this game. Wonder what they're like.
Look, but no guarantees. Do you have it with you?
Could you say that like Dr. Frankenstein? Ego, fetch me the brain. We should try plugging you into a toaster next. Fresh toast.
I don't know if it's the terrible delivery or just bad jokes, but that was brutal. I've learned my lesson, no more of that. Anyway, the doctor tried hooking Nick up to the implant, but he couldn't make sense of it, so it looks like we're gonna have to use the memory lounger and live through it ourselves. So, Kellogg's memories. We're basically walking from memory to memory trying to figure out what we can about the Institute. There's no combat or anything, just cutscenes. This section takes a while, so I'll give you the short version. His childhood sucked, he made a family, they got killed because of his mercenary work, he became famous for his work, the Institute told him to stop messing with them, he took out some synths and said he should work for them instead. We got to watch him stealing Sean from a third-person perspective, then he raised Sean till he was about 10 when the Institute took him away through teleportation. You know, the radio in the room keeps talking about Piper. Keep that in mind for later, because as someone who's beaten the game before, that really confused me. Anyway, Kellogg gets a mission to go track down a scientist who used to work for the Institute, who escaped into the glowing sea, a massive irradiated wasteland. Think the glow from Fallout 1. Seeing as he used to work for the Institute, he's our next guy to find. Oh, and if you don't know the glow from Fallout 1, go check out my Let's Play of Fallout 1. People have told me that it was their favorite way to experience Fallout 1. Not my first ever Let's Play of Fallout 1. You might find it in the playlist section. That was from 13 years ago when I was a 17-year-old, and that was the first series I ever did on this whole YouTube channel. Yes, this YouTube channel actually started with Fallout 13 years ago. No. Watch the Fallout Let's Play from a few years ago. That one's actually pretty good. Link in the description. As we go upstairs, we talk to Nick. He talks back to us in Kellogg's voice, then doesn't remember doing it moments later. Hope that isn't a problem. Here it is, the glowing sea. This is one of those places where you need to either eat a ton of Rad-X before you go in, or need to be wearing power armor with some solid rad resistance, because this place is dangerous. Oh, or a hazmat suit, those'll work. Really, you can run through the whole thing in about 5 minutes, and that's exactly what I did, but radiation lowers your max health, so you really don't want to stay here for long. Along the way, we find the followers of Adam, who tell us that the scientist wants to be left alone, then tells us exactly where he is moments later. Real nice guys. At the end, we find the dude, Virgil. Looks like he's become a super mutant. He's suspicious at first, but once we tell him our motives, he trusts us. He's willing to help us get in as long as we look for a serum to reverse his mutation once we get in there. We don't actually need to do that, by the way, but you can if you want to. He says we need to track down a Corsair since they have relays in them that teleports them into the Institute, and then we need to kill it. Those are like the assassins that the Institute sends out, they're elite soldiers. To find one, we need to go back to the CIT ruins and tune our radio to listen for interference and then follow it. Turns out the CIT ruins are built directly over top of the Institute because it's underground. The signal doesn't lead us very far, just a little east to Green Tech Genetics, a big tower full of mercenaries, and of course the Corsair we're looking for. Now, this building is actually really brutal, and we die quite a few times here. The mercenaries are after the Corsair as well, so they shoot us on sight. It's a giant walking battle where we're fighting through corridors while climbing the tower. The laser weapons aren't too bad, but because of the constant Molotovs, we die a lot. Dogmeat does a decent job of pinning enemies down, but it's mostly up to us to deal the real damage. And we're at the point where our revolver just isn't taking them down very quickly. I can't wait to get to a high enough level where we can get another pointing gun nut. Then we can get a little bit better crit chance, I think. That's some upgrades at least. Once we get to the Corsair, we have this hilarious boss fight. For the first half he uses a stealth boy, but he never really leaves the room that he's in. We can just keep peeking in, taking a few shots at him, and then easily walk back out to reload. He's really passive, only shooting when we stay in his range of sight for a while. Eventually, his stealth boy runs out, and Dogmeat runs in to start pinning him down. So I use those chances to run in, get a bunch of headshots with VATS, and then get back out. We went through a few stim packs and used a ton of bullets, but he really wasn't that bad. I just wish we did more damage. Once he went down, we got the part we needed, freed the synth he was chasing, and got out of there. Let's go get this thing analyzed back in Good Neighbor. So we just get told that she's not able to analyze a Corsair chip, but that she knows some people who might be able to. A group called the Railroad. They help synths escape the Institute. They're an underground group that's headquarters isn't publicly known, but we're told that we can follow the railroad to find them. Now that doesn't mean a literal railroad, it means that we follow the signs in the Boston Commons tour. They leave little lantern marks. Now if you already know where to go though, you can just go straight there, so I head straight to the Old North Church, just west of Green Tech Genetics. Now the church is abandoned, but in the basement is a puzzle where you can input a password. Now remember, the Railroad are a secret organization that helps synths escape the Institute. The people who send killer robots to do their bidding. So this place has got to be super hidden, so you'd think that the password would be incredibly difficult. I'm gonna give you a minute. If you don't already know the password, then write your guesses in the comments section if you have a guess. Alright, you ready? The password is Railroad. This is like having your password be your username. That is the dumbest thing in the world. Wait, it may get dumber. I'm gonna let this scene play because it's incredible.
Stop right there. You went through a lot of effort to arrange this meeting. But before we go any further, answer my questions. Who the hell are you?
Why don't you tell me who you are first?
In a world full of suspicion, treachery, and hunters, we're the synth's only friends. We're the Railroad. So answer my question.
So we guessed the password. That's the same as their username. They ask at gunpoint who we are. We say, you first. And then they just announce who they are and what they do. How have the Institute not wiped you guys off the map yet?
Des, we need to let him in. He's got an intact Corsair chip, for God's sake.
That violates our security protocols.
Lady, your security protocols sucked in the first place. So they were impressed by how we took out a Corsair and they decided to let us in. We give the chip to their hacker, he cracks the code, and then dumps all the data into the holotape for us. Back to Virgil, who can give us the schematics for a device that will let us hijack the Corsair teleportation signal so that we can get sent to the Institute. Problem is, we need to build the thing. This is the part of the game where we are forced to get help. Either the Railroad, Minutemen, or Brotherhood of Steel. I decided to go with the railroad since I haven't even met the Brotherhood, and the Minutemen are still stuck on a rooftop at the start of the game fighting level 1 raiders or whatever they're doing. Before they'll help me build though, I have to go run a mission for them, so she sends me out with Deacon. He's a potential companion who works for the railroad. So first we meet up with one of their members to get some info. Turns out we're going to one of their old bases that the Institute raided to go get a prototype they left behind. What we learn is that the front door is loaded with mines, so we enter through the sewers instead. Now, most of this place is pretty easy. The synths don't really hit super hard because of our high energy resistance, and our revolver does decent enough damage here. Although, it's a big place, so it takes a solid 15 minutes to get through. Still, nothing too interesting happens here, so we make our way to the end with no problems and grab the prototype. Now let's see if the railroad will help us. Okay, I need you to watch this cutscene, because there's no way that it was supposed to play like this.
Come here again if you need to meet us. We'll know you're coming.
Desdemona.
Come here again if you need to meet us. We'll know you're coming.
You still there?
We made a good team.
The best. See you soon. And the new guy patched me up, put me on his shoulder, and blasted his way through the rest of the complex. Synths everywhere.
Carrying you the whole time?
Amazing, right?
That's one word for it. Deacon told me you single-handedly secured Carrington's prototype, disabled a minefield, and wiped out 100 Gen 1s. So is any of that true?
Every word he said was true, and then some.
A full 100. I can't even imagine.
See? Just like I said, boss.
I would play the infamous Todd Howard "It Just Works" clip, but I get the feeling that the E3 YouTube account might ID claim me. Okay, enough goofing around. They ask us to come up with a code name. I look through the list and, I just had to go with Whisper. People who've watched me for over a decade are in hysterics right now, but the other 99% of you have no idea why that's funny. I'm sure someone in the comment section will fill you in if you scroll long enough. Anyway, they let me know to go to the platform at my base, so I do. Then they tell me to go find some supplies for it. The only one I don't have is a sensor module, so I go to a comic book shop for some reason. It's crawling with ghouls, and honestly, this place was pretty hard. We have finally started to run really low on ammo for a revolver after using it pretty much the whole run, and the ghouls are super annoying to hit with such a slow-firing gun. The glowing one at the top of the place almost took us out, but one of the legendary enemies ended up dropping a pipe rifle that has extra recoil, but also extra limb damage. Might be worth using, jury's out on that one. So I build the thing, it says to talk to Desdemona, so I do, and she just says status report. So I try sleeping and come back, and she's still just saying status report. After clicking her, walking away, and coming back so many times that I worried she glitched out, she suddenly starts her dialogue that she was supposed to do. Then she stops, then she says it again, and then the quest continues. This game hardly works sometimes. She lets us know to contact their person on the inside, codenamed Patriot. Then we get teleported in. Right away, we're greeted by a voice over the intercom calling himself Father, the leader of the Institute. He runs this place and tells us that although we may have heard many rumors about the Institute on the surface, he wants a chance to show us what this place really is, and says that it's time we meet Sean. So we walk into a room and see him. We try talking to him, but he just freaks out calling for Father, saying that we're a stranger. I mean, in fairness, he's essentially never met us since he was an infant. Father then walks into the room and says a code that deactivates Sean. He was a synth. We start talking to Father as he drops this bombshell on us.
It's good to finally meet you. After all this time. It's me. I am Sean. I am your son.
We weren't refrozen for 10 years, but for 60 years. The Institute needed to find a human whose cells weren't mutated by the outside so that they could advance their synth research. And that's why they had Kellogg get him from the cryo chamber. I don't actually know if he lived those 10 years with Kellogg in that house and then moved to the Institute, or if he was living in the Institute from day one and was just in Kellogg's house at age 10 for some reason. It's not really explained right now. If he was with Kellogg for 10 years though, then I guess he'd be mutated to some degree out in the wasteland, so I'm guessing he lived with the Institute, I think? It's not really clear. Anyway, while living with them, he eventually became the director of the whole institute, and he's named Father because his cells are used in the synths. He says that the institute have humanity's best interest at heart, and that they've tried to help them in the past, but that it always devolved into bickering, so now they just help from underground. He asks us to join him, and we say yes. Now, we don't actually have to help. In fact, the Railroad tells us to play along with them for a while until we get a chance to betray them, but it's still ultimately our choice who we side with at this point in the game. Either way, we have to do at least a few Institute quests to progress. Okay, so while I run around and talk to all the people that I have to talk to, let's go over some things that happened earlier in the game. Now that we know that Sean is actually an old man, how is that radio talking about Piper when he was 10? Look, right here in the subtitles in Kellogg's memory. Was Piper even alive yet? Sean says he's 60 years old, so are you telling me that Piper was running her newspaper 50 years ago? I don't think that Piper is even 40, let alone 50. The only thing I can think of is that maybe the radio in the room was literally just playing the radio station from the memory den, since I think they were playing the same song. It could be an oversight, but I'm gonna be generous and say that they thought it would be a really neat transition to have you wake up and realize the radio is playing the same song that it was in your environment, and that was just your environment bleeding into the memories, because the alternative is a massive oversight. I'm gonna say there's a 90% chance that they were just thinking the transition would be cool, but man, was that ever confusing. But wait, remember when Valentine first said that he thinks that the guy we're looking for is Kellogg? He said that Kellogg had a 10-year-old with him. Doesn't that mean that that was 50 years ago? Why would Valentine be talking about that as if it was recent? And why would he say that couldn't be Sean because Sean was an infant? If Valentine is remembering this from 50 years ago, then wouldn't that mean that it couldn't possibly be Sean? Dude, I'm so confused. As to why Sean decided it was a good idea that the first thing we see when we get into the Institute is 10-year-old Robo-Sean, I have no idea. I think they have some token really short explanation for it later, but I haven't played in a couple years, and like that scene was wild. Like I know that Bethesda did it so that we'd have a crazy twist, but I can't think of any in-universe reason. Why would they show us this 10-year-old Robo-Sean? Especially before we've even met Father. We don't know who the real Sean is yet. We would obviously think that that's the real Sean. We're armed, and Sean knows that we've shot our way across the wasteland to find him. Wouldn't he think we might just shoot the place up to save Robo-Sean thinking that's the real Sean? I genuinely can't think of a single reason why anyone at the Institute would have thought that that was a good idea. Alright. All of that aside, we upload the Railroad scanner relay thingy into the Institute system as they instructed, and then talk to Father, who wants us to go reclaim a rogue synth that's become the head of a raider gang. They gave us our own relay chip so we can fast travel in and out of here now. Remember earlier when I said that if you're on survival, Hangman's Alley is a great place for a base? Well, it's because even on survival difficulty, you can fast travel near there. To leave the Institute on survival, you have to fast travel to the CIT ruins, and that's right near Hangman's Alley. Super useful. Anyway, I do a little bit of weapon crafting now that we have level 2 gun nut. We mostly just get a little bit better accuracy and crit damage on a few guns though, nothing too big. Now this area is super cool. The synth that we're after is leading a raider gang who lives on a giant boat that's at a long stretch of debris and smaller boats in the water. Normally, this is a massive, terrifying firefight where you're sprinting from boat to boat, shooting raiders and avoiding missiles that they fire from the big boat, but I put a scope on my bolt-action rifle, so I ended up taking it slow and sniping them instead. Now, if I had a recon scope instead of this one, then it would be better because I can mark enemies to keep track of them, but I need another level to have enough perk points to be able to get that, so this'll have to do. We don't hit super hard and can only one-shot the weaker raiders, but this was still a really fun time. The frame rate isn't great, but you know, it's Fallout 4. It doesn't matter that this game uses less than half my GPU and RAM, it still finds a way to chug. This is the first area where I've really gotten to take it slow and snipe though, so I had a fun time. At the top, we run into the synth, so we just say the recall code to shut him down, took out the raiders on the roof who are actually really weak, and then our Institute buddy here teleports them out. Let's go meet back up with Father. So he lets us know that there's something going on down at Bunker Hill. It's a railroad base where they're housing some escaped synths that we need to get back. We have an interesting conversation with him where he clarifies that synths don't want, because they don't have free will. They mimic human behavior, but they don't have literal free will like we do. Now, I'm sure it's buried in a text log somewhere in the game, but I don't know if we ever get an actual definitive answer on this. You for sure don't get a definitive answer during the main plot of the game. Are synths genuinely sentient beings, or are they just self-interested androids that can perfectly mimic humanity? I want to lean towards saying that they don't have sentience because the Institute says they don't, and they literally made them so they'd know better than anyone else. But at the same time, the Institute have the most to gain by saying that they don't have free will. I don't really think that the Institute are dishonest. They seem to genuinely believe that they're doing what's best for humanity, but I also understand if they don't want to believe that they have free will because of the moral implications that would make them feel like monsters. Hard to say. It's honestly a really interesting moral dilemma, though. Let's get on with the mission. As we arrive, we see that there's a three-way firefight that has broken out. The Brotherhood of Steel, the Institute, and the Railroad are all fighting. Now, because we entered the Institute through the Railroad, they're actually not hostile to us, meaning that we only need to fight the Brotherhood. They're honestly really tough, and we use tons of ammo to hurt their power armor, but there are also so many other guys around shooting at them that it's not all that bad. Once we get underground, we can pretty much just run past everybody to the room where the synths are, since both the Institute and the Railroad won't fight us. We get in the room, use the recall code to deactivate the synths, then we have to report back to Father. Weirdly enough, even though we just stole the synths that the Railroad were keeping safe, they don't turn on us and just keep acting like we're still protecting them. I guess it's leftover dialogue? So weird. So after we deal with Bunker Hill, we go meet Sean on top of the rooftop of the CIT building. He says that since the moment he went inside the Institute, he hadn't left until now. I guess that confirms that he was raised by Kellogg for 10 years in the wastes. He wasn't just going back and forth. I got a question. Why? The Institute wanted Sean, so they hired Kellogg to get him. Then they waited 10 years before picking him up? I must be missing something here. I'm sure some lore master in the comments section can explain it. Anyway, Sean says that he's the one who had us released from cryostasis to observe us, and to see if we were corrupted by the wastes, but we weren't. Like, corrupted by the wastes not in a radiation way, corrupted by the wastes like thinking that the Institute is bad or something. He's impressed. We share a touching moment, and then he says to come to a meeting at the Institute. So we go to the meeting. Wait, okay, future MDB here, from a day after I originally finished making this video. Okay, so you know how sometimes I put these videos up on Twitter a few days ahead of time so that people get to see it early? Follow me on Twitter, by the way. Well, people there told me of something that I totally overlooked. This Sean from Kellogg's Memory, the 10-year-old Sean, that was recent, but it was the 10-year-old Robo-Sean. Okay, that explains the whole thing about why Valentine was talking about it like it was recent. It doesn't explain Piper on the radio, but I'm still rolling with the theory that that was just the radio from the room in the memory den bleeding into the memories. It also explains why present Sean said that he hasn't been on the surface since he first arrived at the Institute. They didn't wait 10 years, he was already there, that was Robo-Sean who was out on the surface. But this just adds so many new questions. Okay, I know Bethesda did this so that they could have a big twist, obviously. 10-year-old Robo-Sean is with Kellogg so that the player can see him in Kellogg's memory, and they get the breadcrumb trail that will tell them to infiltrate the Institute. I get that part, that makes sense. But in-universe? I'm baffled in so many ways. Okay, check this out on the wiki, and I'm using the wiki for this since it's basically the Library of Alexandria when it comes to Fallout. The entry for Robo-Sean says that he was made on a whim, to the point that other Institute members question why he even exists. His entry doesn't even say he was with Kellogg or elaborate on his purpose at all, but Kellogg's entry does a little bit. It says that decades after the kidnapping, Kellogg was sent to Diamond City with Synth Sean. Kellogg's dialogue says that it wasn't his idea to settle down with the kid. I'm sure Bethesda wrote that to not give away that it's a synth, but I really think Kellogg would refer to the kid as a synth, you know, considering it's his own memories that we're hearing, but whatever. Maybe he didn't know? None of this is really elaborated on, it's left super ambiguous. I guess we don't really know if he knew it was a synth or not, but it's kind of implied that he knew because, well, I mean, this Sean is 10, And it hasn't been 10 years that passed, it was decades later, so, you know, if that was the infant, it would be an adult now, so I guess Kellogg knew it was a synth. But then you have to question why his memories didn't bring up that it was a synth. It's not like his memories can lie to himself. Whatever, that's like the least of my concerns. Anyway, it just says that he realizes that he was bait for, well, us, like the dude from the vault. So Father's master plan to get us to come to the Institute was to make a robot 10-year-old child Sean to have Kellogg get spotted with it in town? Why wouldn't Father make an infant Robo-Sean instead? Our character thought Sean was still an infant, not a 10-year-old. In fact, him being 10 made our character doubt that it was him. And honestly, what was the plan for us to learn any of this? We had to find out by killing Kellogg, taking his memory implant thingy to the memory den, and the person running the place said that she's never tried anything like this and has no idea if it'll work. There's no memory den in the Institute, so it's not like they have the technology to test if the plan works or not. What if we literally just didn't pick up that thing from Kellogg's brain? Or what if it didn't work? Or what if we didn't think to do that? Or what if we didn't have Nick Valentine, the Earth's single prototype synth with free will, who happened to live in the same city to agree to be the conduit for the memories? What if Nick couldn't be the conduit for the memories? What if Nick wasn't kidnapped by Skinny Malone, and thus we never befriended him? Or what if Nick just was killed by Skinny? Then we wouldn't have ever even known Kellogg's name, where he lived, that the memory den exists. Any of this, Nick was really the driving point for a lot of the main story. It would just be game over. Does the Institute even know about Nick Valentine? They never bring him up now that I think about it. He's a prototype synth. If they knew about him, wouldn't they want to reclaim him like they reclaim every single other escaped synth? It's not like they don't know he's a synth. I mean, look at him. The Institute seemed to have a real issue with escaped synths. Why would they be okay with me working with them? Was that their plan, or was that not their plan? Or did they not know that I needed him to see Kellogg's memories? Because if they didn't know that, then maybe they shouldn't have come up with a plan that require I blow Kellogg's brains out and use his Cortex implant thing in conjunction with a synth and a memory lounger. Man, this whole plan would have just fallen apart if the bullet I put in Kellogg's head accidentally hit that implant and ruined it. If I sound exasperated, it's because this is insane. When you look at it from a storytelling perspective, I understand why Bethesda made these choices. It was to properly fool the player into not realizing all of what was going on until they had the moment to talk to Father so that they could have a stunning reveal. That makes sense. I understand why you'd want a big twist like that. That's pretty cool. But in-universe, the characters have to make such insane leaps of logic. The fact that Father's insane plan to get us to come to the Institute ever worked is nothing short of a miracle, because half of what he did to convince us to go there didn't make any sense. Why is Robo-Sean not an infant if he was trying to make us track down our infant son? Look at the interview we had with Nick. Our character didn't realize we were refrozen. We said that he was an infant. Why did we have to use experimental technology to look for the memories in the Wasteland's most dangerous mercenary's brain to find out that Sean is in the Institute? Was there really no better way that Father could have dropped that hint on us? My god, at that point just leave a note in the vault we came from that said, "Take the infant to the Institute." And that would have been all it takes for a character to know that he needed to go there. Couldn't you just made it look like the mercenary dropped this work notice of what he was supposed to do, and whoa, there we go, there's our clue. That didn't make more sense to Father as a plan than us invading the memories of a mercenary that the Institute themselves referred to as a psychopath? All our character needs to know is that the guy who took Sean went to the Institute, right? You don't need to make a robot 10-year-old to give to a mercenary so that he could later die and have his memories read from a dead body for what seems to be the first time in history. I love this game. It's a fun time, but Bethesda, please, I'm begging you, make it make sense. All right, you, the person watching this, Mike or Jamal or Chloe or Vicky or whatever your name is, can you explain to me what I'm missing? Can you explain to me how this makes sense? I know one of you guys are smarter than me. What am I missing? There has to be a puzzle piece I'm missing here that makes it less insane. I'm hunting on the wiki as much as I can, but it's just a mystery. This video is coming out on Christmas Eve. Maybe Santa will bring me some answers this year. Either I'm a madman, Father is a madman, or Todd Howard is a madman. Okay, well, Todd Howard is a madman, but that's beside the point. Oh, and totally unrelated, but you know how at the start of the video I put on screen RIP Shoddycast? Well, Shoddycast just uploaded another video literally less than 24 hours after I first rendered this video, so I guess congratulations to Shoddycast for coming back from the dead. Anyway, I'm going back to the game. First, they let us know that they need more power, like as in electricity. We're gonna need to do a mission topside for that. Next, he drops a bombshell on us. He let everybody know that he's dying from an aggressive form of cancer. Because of that, he's got to pick a successor. And he picks us.
To that end, I am naming my father as my successor.
Oh, boy. You can't be serious.
Really? Seems a poor choice.
Yeah, honestly, I agree with them. I've been here for like a day. I'm probably the worst pick for the job, but whatever, I'll roll with it. Our first job as the next leader in line is to risk our lives fighting the Brotherhood of Steel for something that we need to fire up our nuclear generator. Seems like they could probably just send a Corsair to do this, but delegation doesn't seem to be the Institute's strong suit. Maybe that's the first thing I should fix when I'm the leader. Let's go get that science thing. So we start off at the top of the building, and we have to fight our way to the terminal to turn on the elevator. The Brotherhood initiates aren't that hard to fight, but the knight in his power armor was a big problem. He hit hard, so we had to pop in and out of cover, damaging his right arm and his head until he went down. We weren't really doing much damage to them. We're gonna need a few more levels to get another level of rifleman. Then maybe the armor piercing will help. As we go down the elevator, we have waves of enemies shooting at us. Most of them can be one-shot, and the experience is nice, but I can't loot any of their bodies for anything of value, so it's debatable whether it's worth it or not. Eventually, they shut down the elevator and I have to run out and fight a bit before I can turn it back on, but it's nothing too hard. That changes soon, though. Once we get down to the reactor, I find a hazmat suit and go in to retrieve what we came for. That activates the security robots, though, and that gives us a brutal two-part boss fight. The first part of the fight is against this sentry bot. He's super fast, deals tons of damage, and is crazy aggressive. We have Dogmeat and Allie from the Institute backing us up, and every once in a while they'll go down and then they'll just get back up a while later and fight more, but they don't really help much. Thankfully, there are these little side rooms that we can hide in that he's too wide to get into, so we can peek out and take shots at him. It's hard, and we take a lot of damage, but we do eventually take them down. Phase 2 of this fight is much harder, though. Next up is a pair of Assaultrons, and these things are monsters. They run much faster than us, can shake our camera like crazy in melee, and will randomly shoot some kind of beam out of their face that nearly instantly kills us. Seriously, you can watch how fast our health drains quite a few times in this footage if you want to, cause I died tons. Easily the hardest fight we've had up until this point in the run. They seem to do it pretty much randomly too. Some attempts I'll nearly take them down before they use it, and in other attempts they use it within the first 10 seconds. It got to the point where I started using chems like Psycho Jet to slow time, increase our damage output, and decrease the damage they do. They still just wipe us out instantly with their beams, and they take tons of shots to actually take down. Our pipe guns are hardly doing any damage to them. Our slow fire speed became such a problem that I actually switched back to using our original pipe gun, just because it shoots a lot faster and that ended up performing better. It took many tries, but eventually I took them down. After that, we could fight our way back to the main lobby easily. Last for this building is the fight in the lobby itself. It's not exactly hard, but it takes a while. There are tons of Brotherhood of Steel members in here, including some knights in their power armor. We have a few synths backing us up, but they don't last long, so it's mostly just us, Allie, and Dogmeat. I won just by peeking out of the doorframe, taking some shots with our rifle, and then hiding again over and over. We did blow through quite a few stimpaks in this building. I might have to stock up soon. Once we clear the place, we can go back to the Institute. Okay, next mission. Father tells us that there's some guy that they want to recruit for the Institute. They basically never do this, but his knowledge is apparently vital, but he has mercenaries at his place because he knew that we were coming. We got sent over, took out some really weak mercenaries, then go in. He's got himself locked in a room, so we have to talk him into coming out. He seems to think we harvest organs or whatever other weird things people think about the Institute, so it's pretty hard to have him come with us. Our charisma isn't great, so I couldn't just convince him, so another Institute guy had a synth beamed right into his room to knock him out, and that's the whole mission. I think this mission is basically just to show you that although the Institute are well-meaning and offer him a much better life, they're not above just kidnapping people if they have to, just like the rumors say. Back to Father. So he let us know that we're going to record a broadcast to send out to the wasteland, announcing that we are indeed still around. Our message we're trying to get across is a warning to not interfere with what we're going to do. We have some choices in what we say here, and I tried to make my broadcast as uplifting, reassuring, and, well, the least creepy I can, but it still comes across creepy. Look, there's no way of saying that your personal freedoms won't be infringed if you stay out of our way, and that there will be dire consequences for all if you do, without sounding like some kind of evil overlord. He sends me off to go fix the broadcasting station for Diamond City Radio before we broadcast it though, since its range just isn't that great. I can see why. The guy running the place is a little,
Travis.
Okay. I usually don't... This is why. This radio station, you notice...
Well, to say he's in over his head is an understatement. The puzzle is easy, it takes about a minute to do. You just move 3 bits between 3 machines until it says that you did it right. After that, we go back to the Institute where we fire up the reactor as Father's giving a speech. We have another meeting to go to, but as the new director, he tells us that we should lead it. Oh, I'm sure this'll go great. So at the meeting, they let us know that the plan is to wipe out the Brotherhood of Steel. Makes sense, there's absolutely no way they wouldn't wipe us out given the chance. They ask if they should make more synths or upgrade their weapons before the attack. I say more synths because I just want as many distractions as possible so I can focus on fighting without getting hit constantly. Then they tell us to go talk to Father. I do, and he says we need to wipe out the railroad too. Now, to beat the game, you have to side with a faction, and you'll need to wipe out at least one other faction. I don't mind the railroad, as dumb as they can be, but I decide to stay with the Institute and wipe them out. This is mostly a practical decision for the sake of the run. My pipe weapons probably won't be great against the Institute, but I know I can wipe out the railroad easily. They're all stuck in one room. Let's go do that. Before I go, I do some more upgrades to our weapons. Nothing too huge this time, just modding the barrels of the long-range rifles to have a little bit less of an accuracy penalty. I wish I could make them stronger, but I already have all the mods for that, plus the 3rd level of rifleman. Let's go hit up the railroad. Alright, so the fight in here ends up being really easy. We can almost one-shot everything in here on a headshot other than Glory. They're heavy with a minigun. She does some real damage to us at first, but once I lure them all into a hallway, I'm able to gun them down pretty easily. That was quick, let's go back to the Institute. Okay, so they let us know that it's time to take on the Brotherhood. They're based at an airport, but they have something stopping us from just teleporting right on them. They're gonna teleport us near the airport, then we have to go in and shut down the generators that will let us teleport the synths in. Once we have them swarmed, we're gonna go to their giant death robot named Liberty Prime, you might remember that from Fallout 3, and hack this thing with our own synth that has a virus, then use Liberty Prime to shoot down their airship. Sounds like a good plan. Let's take one last look at our perks before we go in. I'm pretty happy with these perks, although we still don't deal a ton of damage. We take 30% less from level 2 Lone Wanderer, we have extra health, and a bunch of extra damage resistance, although we don't have the perk for bonus energy resistance. Let's hope our leather armor can help offset that. Honestly, most of our perks are pretty good, but our gear is all still really old. Well upgraded, but very early game equipment. Make your final guesses on if we can win this or not.
Let's do this.
Very well.
So the first step is to get to their generators so that we can turn them off and let our synth backup arrive. I start by trying to sneak as close as I can to the building with the generators. It doesn't take long before I get spotted and just sprint in since we have no stealth upgrades, but we did get a lot closer because of the approach. While on the roof of the building, I mostly have a very slow advance, picking people off from around corners. There's a vertibird that keeps strafing the building to shoot at us, as well as a ton of knights that I can't really take on in a head-to-head fight. Progress is really slow as a result. Every time I run into one, I have to keep popping out from behind cover and taking shots at its head with a revolver, and man, are there ever a ton of Brotherhood of Steel members in here. At least the unarmored ones go down in a few hits. Eventually though, I realized that I can just shoot the generator once, and then the synths will come in. I kinda thought I had to run up to them or something. Whoops. Could've done this a while ago. Well, now that the synths are here, things are much easier. There's one last section of the base left. It's actually a pretty small place. We need to protect this synth as it hacks Liberty Prime. This isn't too bad since we have tons of synths helping us out on the ground with the fighting, but occasionally, members of the Brotherhood will start climbing on the platform that we're on to try and stop us, so we have to shoot those ones down. They're pretty easy as long as the knights don't climb up, and they rarely do. We did die on the first attempt though. When we were about to finish the hack, I suddenly got blasted by a Gatling laser from behind and didn't get behind cover fast enough. Man, what even hit me? On the second try, things went basically the same, but I knew I had to hide near the end this time. Turns out that Elder Maxim, the leader of this sect of the Brotherhood, shows up on a nearby rooftop. I took some shots at him and dealt some pretty decent damage, but once we had Liberty Prime hacked, it was all over for him. A Corsair came in to teleport us to safety as Liberty Prime shot down the Brotherhood's airship, and we got to sit back and watch the explosion. Hey, only one death in the final battle of the game. That's not bad. After all of that, we go back to the Institute to find Sean in his deathbed. We talk to him one last time, let him know that the Institute will be safe in our hands, and say our goodbyes before he goes to sleep one last time. Then we fade to the outro of the game. That's the end, and that means we've beaten our first Fallout 4 run. I'm gonna be honest, it was a little bit harder than I thought it would be. Early game was pretty normal, but man, that fight in the reactor was brutal. Our guns really did not hit hard at all. I think next time I do a Fallout 4 run, I'm gonna do VATS only. That's one I've been thinking about for a really long time, and I bet you it'd be pretty fun. You know, never damaging an enemy outside of VATS. Should be an interesting build at least. I really hope you guys like that run. The next challenge is going to be a Pokemon challenge again, but it might not be for a few weeks. Because of the medical issues I've been having, I haven't had a backlog of videos for quite a while now. Normally I keep a backlog for a few weeks of challenges just in case I get too sick to work, but naturally I blew through that whole backlog when I couldn't work for 3 months. Being bedridden for almost 3 straight months will really make it hard to work. I'm gonna take January to try and get that backlog back. As long as my health holds up and I have time, you should still see some Let's Play stuff on the channel, as well as possibly some streams. Maybe even some Pokemon stuff. We'll see what I have time for. But the next challenge might be in like 3 or 4 weeks. I'll keep you up to date on Twitter. As always, I'm looking forward to your suggestions in the comments, in the challenge request section of my Discord channel, and on Twitter. Subscribe, ring the bell, stay tuned. Alright, outro time. I hope you guys liked that run. That was my first Fallout 4 run, as I'm sure you already know. I've been looking forward to doing that one for a really long time. I kind of planned on doing that before, you know, all the health problems and everything, so this is one that I've been wanting to do for a long time. So I'm really happy to finally do it. It was a really fun time. It didn't take quite as long as I thought it would. It's funny, it's one of those ones where I thought it would take a long time because I knew that it's my first run in a game, so I was going to go over the plot and stuff like that and give it some extra time. But I also kind of thought that the run itself might be really quick, so I wanted to record like lots of extra stuff. It ended up talking about the plot stuff didn't take as long as I thought, and actually playing the run took longer than I thought. I don't know, I just misremembered, I guess. I thought that the pipe weapons were more upgradable than they ended up being. I thought you could get more damage out of them than I ended up being able to do. I'm sure if I was like really optimal with the build, then I probably could have squeezed more damage out of them. But you know, just the way that I played it at least, there were some pretty hard parts. Not horrible overall though. And again, it was a fun time, so that's the most important part. I want to do more Fallout 4 runs. I want to do more Bethesda runs in general, of course. I have a really fun Elder Scrolls Oblivion one I have in mind. I want to do a challenge. It's barely even a challenge. I just want to do a run where I beat the whole game with 100% chameleon effect on. Like, I'll just, like, use the command console to, like, I don't know, warp in an item that has 100% chameleon or something. I'll figure out how to do that. And just beat the whole game being completely invisible the entire time and just document what happens. Because, like, so much of the fun of those Oblivion runs is just how wacky the game is and seeing what crazy stuff happens every time. So I really want to do it with 100% chameleon the entire time, just to see what happens. Like, is it even beatable? Will there be NPCs that don't react to us and thus I can't progress with the game? Like, I don't know. So I really want to see. I think it'll just make for a really funny video, even if it's barely a challenge, you know? It wouldn't even surprise me if it's literally impossible, because it wouldn't surprise me if, like, some person you have to talk to open a door or something that's required to beat the game just doesn't happen if you happen to be invisible. Who knows? Well, we'll all know once I actually do that run. But that run will have to wait. I should do, like, another 3 Pokemon runs first, because usually I do 3 Pokemon runs, and then that 4th run is going to be, like, a Bethesda game or something. But that's going to be a fun time. Anyway, my neck's bothering me right now, so I'm gonna go lay down. Thank you everybody so much for watching, and until next time, have a nice day.